Hey, welcome to the show, everybody. My name is Mike. This is the Leadership Toolkit. As you know, your definitive leadership growth podcast. It's an opportunity for leadership development, personal growth, and it's an opportunity to listen to people that are out there in the world doing the thing and learn from their successes. Also, sometimes we learn from their failures. How do you avoid hitting that wall that they did? And so I always encourage everybody, as you're tuning into the show, make sure you grab a pen or pencil and something to take notes on. And today is going to be an absolutely phenomenal show. I'm really excited to host Sam Demma on the show. He's a best-selling author. He's a keynote speaker. He's a creator whose videos have been viewed over 250 million times. He's out there working the speaker circuit, teaching if you can teach kindness. I think he teaches kindness and confidence. He's a very genuine speaker. I've watched him many times on YouTube, and I'm excited to have him on the show today. I think he's done over 750 keynotes, which is massive because he's a young man. So Sam, I'm going to bring you on the show right now. Sam Demma, welcome to the Leadership Toolkit. Thanks for spending time with me today, man.
Mike, I'm honored to be here. Thank you for that kind introduction and for creating the space today.
Absolutely. Well, if you would, let's take just a couple of minutes. And if you just share a little bit of your background, because as we were talking, you are a young man. You are, I could end up gushing over this, but you are making an impact in, the space that you're in, that leadership space, that personal growth space, motivation, I guess. I mean, that there's, I don't even know how you would encompass all of it. But if you would share a bit of your background, how did you get started doing what you're doing? And, please introduce yourself.
It started with the dream at a young age to play professional soccer. 5 years old, my parents put a soccer ball in front of my feet and I wouldn't stop kicking it against furniture all over the house. My mom loved that, if you ask her.
Right.
And I pursued that really seriously. And by the time I was 13, very fortunate at a professional soccer club in Italy, I reached out and asked my parents for permission to move me there to play with their club in the hope of signing me on a contract. Didn't really work out. Gained like 15 pounds from all the pasta and pizza. But just fell in love with the game even more than I already was. Came back home, dedicated my life through high school to sport and academics. By the time I was 17, I had a full ride Division I soccer scholarship, pending on the coaches at Memphis University coming to watch me play one final time. I ended up having, soon thereafter, 3 major knee injuries, 2 surgeries, spent the next 2.5 years trying to get back on a field before making what felt like one of the most challenging choices in my childhood, which was to stop playing soccer.
Wow.
1 week off turned into 1 month, 1 month turned to 6 months. It's now been almost 8 years. And I was very fortunate that when I was going through the challenging transition, I had a teacher named Mr. Loudfoot. His name was Mike, actually. Cool name, huh?
Yeah.
And he taught this lesson about a small, consistent action making a really big impact. That we should, when we find ourselves in a challenge, just focus on the next small step. And he actually gave us a challenge to go in the community and take a small, consistent action towards something we wanted to solve. I didn't have a problem I was passionate about working towards, but I left his class thinking about, what small actions can I take? That led to being more aware of garbage that I saw on the sidewalk walking home, which led to picking up trash. Then a buddy saw me and was like, dude, why don't we do this together? And we started doing these volunteer garbage cleanups for the next 5.5 years every Saturday morning. And we needed volunteers when it started. So I asked my principal if I could speak in front of the entire school body. Probably spoke for 2 minutes. It was the worst speech ever delivered by a human being. And awesome. I laugh about it now because sometimes we have this unrealistic expectation that our first at bat is supposed to be a home run, but it's not. It's like our first reps at anything are subpar always, but that's what they're supposed to be. It's how we build the skill. And I had the delusion that I was doing a great job despite the video. And we got 60 students excited about coming to pick up trash. And I thought, wow, if I speak at all the schools in the district, we're going to get tons of volunteers. So I asked my principal to introduce me to other school principals in the district. That year, I did about 15, 20 of these voluntary performances until I got some external validation from a principal of a school who didn't know me, who pulled me aside and just took a moment to speak some life into me and tell me that he thought I had a gift and I should continue pursuing it. And it was the first time since athletics that I felt I was providing value in some way, shape, or form. And it led to the past 8 years refining the craft of storytelling, traveling, speaking, in the hope of making people better and sharing stories that challenge their own thoughts and actions.
It's really good, because what's wild to me, and thank you for sharing all that, Sam. I didn't realize that's how your start was.
Yeah.
It's that rocky start. What I realized, and how you and I came connected, and I thought I got to have this young man on the show, was, I started getting some YouTube videos, and I'm like, and just like anybody. And what's funny is, as you're saying, hey, that's led to the past 8 years of doing this. A lot of people would look at that and go, oh man, this guy just went viral overnight, right? He's huge. You're doing all this stuff. And you're going, no, man, I put in a whole bunch of work leading up to this. So when you're saying the past 8 years, when you first got started, so you were late teens, early 20s. Yeah. And do you remember, actually, it's going to have two questions. This is just how my brain works, so you just got to roll with me through this. Do you remember? So you said, hey, I gave this really terrible speech. Why was it terrible? What was terrible about it?
When I watched the footage back years later, in the moment, I thought it was amazing. Right. When I watched the footage back years later, I was not making eye contact with anyone in the audience. I was pacing back and forth because I was so nervous. It was one of the first times I ever spoke. I was holding the microphone so close to my mouth. Even if the volume was at 1, people would have been covering their ears because it was so loud. I was screaming at them. From a performance standpoint, I look back and cringe. But what I did have that I don't give myself enough credit for is a genuine, authentic desire to serve, support, and make a difference. And that was the thing that I believe connected with people and got them excited about getting involved. And I think what an insightful question you ask, because I'm now thinking of people in my life who have made a big impact on me. And at times they didn't have the right thing to say. They didn't even know what to say, but I knew in their heart that they wanted to help me, and their presence alone shifted how I was feeling.
So, and that's really good. And I appreciate, and I said this before the show, I'm going to say it again now. If you're listening to the show on a podcast platform, if you're watching right now on YouTube or Spotify, write this stuff down, because it's amazing, right? The thing that I picked up on, one of those things that will carry you very far in business, in leadership, and in life, you said, hey, I had a genuine desire to serve, support, and make a difference. And I think that's something that's so powerful. So often we get into these roles as leaders or as people out front, right? It would have been easy for you to be up speaking in front of the school and make it about you, right? Like, hey, I'm going to do this trash pickup thing. I'm going to do this. And so I want you to, I want to present this to you because I want you to go with me, and all the fame and fortune that's going to come to me from the picking up, right? But you laugh about it, but it doesn't matter what the thing is, right? That happened to be the catalyst, the springboard, as you're talking about doing this. At the heart of it was, you said, I really wanted to serve, support, and make a difference. People will get in behind that. When you're leading others, whether you're it's a one-off, or you think it starts as a one-off, or if you're getting promoted in business, that carries far more weight than a title, far more weight. And so progressing through your career, and I think a lot of times I lean into this stuff, Sam, like what's early on, because I think a lot of people that do watch or listen to the show, they think, well, hey, I'm just getting started. And it's easy to fall into this space of, well, who am I to do that? Right. Who am I to make this decision? So do you remember what was the turning point? You said, hey, I talked with my principal who introduced you to other principals who gave you this chance. How did you start to refine your message? How did you start to get better at what you do compared to where you started? Because I think it's easy to fall in to think, oh, I'm really good at that. There was a good message. People signed up and came with me, so it must have been great, right? Did you ask for feedback? Were you just afforded feedback other than the one person that came and said, hey, you've got a real gift for this? Where did you really start to refine that message and work on it?
Thursday nights or Tuesday nights, depending on the week, in a small daycare that was closed at night, that was rented to the Eagles Toastmaster Club, which is a professional speaking or public speaking organization internationally that has chapters all over the globe. You can invest $100 a year and you'll join a chapter that meets on a weekly or bi-weekly basis where you can practice your public speaking skills. The reason I came across it is because right when we were starting Pickways and I was starting to deliver speeches, and at the time I thought I was doing an amazing job, I visited a startup accelerator program in Oshawa. I'm from Pickering, Ontario. It's about a 30-minute drive from my house.
Okay.
And they were teaching you how to pitch the thing you started so that you could attend pitch competitions and get monetary support or volunteer support, or it was just to become a better speaker. And I remember the gentleman that was teaching the class was named Marlon Shaw. And I showed up 2 hours late because I had another arrangement, something going on that day. And he laughs about it with me because I showed up in a sweater and sweatpants. And he was like, who's this guy showing up 2 hours late to my class? Like, what is going on? And after I finished sharing what we were doing, he resonated with the idea of small actions. And he came up to me and said, you would benefit greatly from joining Toastmasters. You should check it out. It's this public speaking group. It's where I go. And what I didn't realize at the moment was that I was building my dojo. And I think every craft, every skill needs a dojo or a place you go to practice and refine it. If you watch The Karate Kid, like there's no martial artist that doesn't go to the gym. There's no professional athlete that doesn't practice when they're not at practice with their team. And I think I was fortunate that early in my speaking career, someone helped me realize that, and Toastmasters became the place for me. I did that for 2.5, close to 3 years. And then I joined an association called CAPS, the Canadian Association of Professional Speakers. And I was surrounded by people doing the work who were much further along than I was. Now I'm taking this question a little further than what you asked. You talked about the start, but it kind of continued from there. And it got to a point where I would invite other speakers to my events and have them watch me speak and ask them if they'd be willing to take some notes and give me feedback. I just think the moment we feel we've reached our pinnacle is the moment we stop growing. And it's a missed opportunity because you can learn something from every human being you cross paths with. Every success, every challenge, there's a learning lesson if you have the humility to reflect on it.
Man, I love that. That is such a... Sorry, it takes me a minute sometimes to come back on screen because I'm taking notes. Because I'm like, it's so good. So 2 things that stand out to me there, 3 things really. You said I started building my dojo. I'm going to want you to expand on that in just a minute. So if we can.
Yep.
And Sam has said several times, and I want people to take note of this. It's small, consistent actions. It's not just small actions. It's not there's a level. If you want to be good at anything, it requires consistency. I remember similarly, Sam, watching Tony Robbins speak years ago. And one of the things that he was joking about, he says, it's like going to the gym, right? You don't just show up to the gym once and you go, well, I'm glad that's over. I'm in shape now, but it's the same thing, whether it comes to speaking, leading, managing, selling, marketing. Pick your discipline, right? When it comes to business, you have to do that thing and you have to do it consistently and you have to have small steps towards it. And the amazing thing is, I think so often people will watch from the outside. And like I said, my impression prior to talking to you, I'm like, man, this young man is so far ahead of where some people are searching in business when it comes to, speaking, impactfulness, the strength and confidence that you speak with. And I see some of that stuff and I go, man, you're so far ahead. That what I'm hearing though is it's wild, because you're like, well, I've been doing this already for 8 years, right? You took all of the small, consistent actions. You were deliberate about it. I love the statement that you said. You said, when we believe we reach our pinnacle, that's when we stop growing. And I've heard many people say, hey, like, you're either growing or you're dying. There's no nothing in the middle, right? You don't just get to a point. If you plateau somewhere, eventually it's going to erode and you're going to work your way down on that. So I want to expand a couple of things so I don't get too far ahead of myself, because I definitely want people to connect with you as well. Sam said one of the best ways to connect with him and see his content, check out Instagram. So you go to instagram.com/Sam_Demma. That's SAM_DEMMA. So make sure, and I always spell the stuff out so that if people are listening, hopefully it sticks, right?
Thanks.
Also, Sam's written several books. I'll have you expand on this. They can go to shop.samdemma.com, and there's no underscore, no space there. So it's shop.samdemma, SAMDEMMA.com. So tell me about a couple of the books you've written, because one of them is Be Someone's Taco, right? And I laugh because I would ask, like, well, how did you come up with the name? But then there's also, like, you've got a story behind all these. You're an amazing storyteller. So Empty Your Backpack. I don't know that I couldn't guess at that one, but can you tell us about a few of your books and how did you come up with the names for these, Sam?
I'll start by saying I only have a few or a couple right now, but in the future, okay, we continue to collect. I continue to capture and collect stories in my everyday life, and that's what ends up becoming speaking material and stories that I pop in the books. And as long as I'm staying attentive and present in my day to day, there's a never ending amount of material. So I hope to write lots more. The first book I wrote is titled Empty Your Backpack, and it's about giving people permission to define themselves and create a life that they're incredibly proud of, despite the opinions and expectations of external pressure. A perfect story that captures it. And I say we because me, my best friend Cross, and 2 other friends hopped in my grandma's minivan a few years ago and drove it across Canada, doing what was called the Empty Your Backpack speaking tour. I had this giant red 4-foot backpack. I still have it. I still use it. And it served as a metaphor for our minds and the thoughts we carry, and how the thoughts determine our emotions, which lead to our actions, and they create our outcomes. And I was arguing in my speech that if we want to change how we feel and we want to, create success in life and school, because I was speaking to a lot of students, we got to start with the beliefs in the backpack. And so a part of this project was writing the book. And when I got back from the speaking tour, my neighbor, Ruel, was one of the first people who bought a copy of Empty Your Backpack. He actually bought 4 for him and his kids. And, he read the book. And I guess when I had gotten back, he was excited to tell me about it, because he was standing on the edge of his driveway waving me down. And I ran across the street and he's like, dude, the book was amazing. The kids loved it. And his kids are like 2 and 3 years old. I was like, they're not going to understand the content. Like, what is this guy talking about? And he's like, no, Sam, they loved it. Like, I read it to them every single night. It helped them fall asleep. And I was like, don't you dare leave an Amazon review. I know where you live.
Right. Help my kids fall asleep. Yeah. Thank you so much.
And he kind of got emotional and said, well, actually, it inspired me to have a difficult conversation with my dad. You see, my dad, ever since I was a little kid, all he ever wanted me to do was climb the corporate ladder. And that's what I did for 28 years. And I'm almost as high as you could get in this company now. But all I've ever wanted to do since I was your age and younger was fix bicycles. And he went to his garage door and he punched in the passcode. The door goes up and there's like 15 bikes in his garage, and a makeshift sign stuck on his wall that says Bike Mage, the magician of bicycles.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I left his garage and I was like, that's that's what the book's about. It's about giving people permission to live life on their terms, to stop living it based off other people's expectations or external pressures, to encourage them to have the difficult conversations. Practically, the book is split into 2 sections. The first half is all about mindset shifts. The second half is all about actions to move you closer to that goal or that dream. And that's really the essence of Empty Your Backpack. And I mean, I live it out. We got it tattooed on my left forearm.
Nice. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, and thank you for sharing that stuff, man. You are a very insightful and wise individual. And I appreciate that, because as you're sharing that, I remember hearing that story, and I remember thinking, man, this guy's talking to me. Like it's some of those pieces we all it's easy to and I'll send this message out to people that listen, and the leaders and the managers and so forth that listen to this. Like, it's easy to get caught up in chasing the corporate ladder, the title, the fortune and fame, so to speak, of business, right? That we get caught up in that, and we chase that. And so often, I think, when we're chasing that thing, we lose sight of why we started, right? And it's like, what was the reason you got involved in that in the first place? And for some people, maybe you said your neighbor's name was Raul, right? So maybe for him, he says, well, I got in there because I had a paycheck, or I needed a paycheck and had to provide for the family and do those things. I don't know his reasons. I don't claim to. But I think we start heading one direction, and over time we lose that, and we lose the magic, right? We lose the fire, and we do it out of obligation rather than out of passion. And so, I mean, you can find passion in all kinds of places. I mean, you can find passion in where you least expected to find it, but sometimes it does take that really, call it a rude awakening, call it an abrupt, smack in the face of so forth, of like what you're sharing. Hey, punches in the garage code, dude's garage comes up and he's got all these bicycles he's working on. Like, that in itself is magical. I think it's awesome.
And I think it's also important to highlight for people listening who are thinking, sounds like he was in a position where he was able to make that jump. What a privilege, because there's many people that aren't. And
Sure.
I want to just acknowledge that. And if that is the scenario you find yourself in, how can you find avenues outside of the work to create that love and joy again, if you don't get it in what pays the bills?
Absolutely.
Because the part of the story I didn't share was the end, when I asked him how he did it. And he said, I stopped playing for the points and I started playing for the love of the game again. And it was this big reminder for me, without even realizing that he was speaking to me, to focus on what matters most. And that was it was a really cool moment and experience. So.
That's really good. Well, and it's, that's a really strong statement. Stop playing for the points, start playing for the love of the game, or remind yourself to play for the love of the game.
Yeah.
Because, and that this goes back, as we were talking beforehand, I have a few years on you. I know I look great for my age, but I just, that goes back to those small, consistent actions. If you have something you love and that you're passionate about, I'll use myself as an example. This podcast, sometimes where it starts with 15 minutes a day. It also took the Leadership Toolkit. This iteration of this podcast took one of my best friends calling me and saying, dude, you've got a voice, you got a message to share, pull your head out and go do this. And it's like, oh, but I don't have time, and I got all this and I got all that. And it's like, you do have time. It's just, what are you doing with that time? What are the actions that you're putting into the time that you do have? The reality is we all blow, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes a day, sometimes more so than like scrolling and doing things like that. But if you have a passion for something, come up with, hey, look, after your family dinner, and again, I'm speaking to probably an older demographic now, but after that, you've done your job for the day, the thing that employs you and makes your income. You come home, spend time with the family, because that's important. Do the family dinner. at 8 or 9 o'clock at night, spend from 9 to 9:30 p.m. working on that thing that fuels your soul. And inevitably, you'll start finding time throughout the day or days, your time off, those other things, to be able to fuel that even more. And it'll turn into something. Like I said, for me, this podcast, I spend now several hours a week doing it because I love it. And I love talking to people like you. Like, I'm super blessed to be able to have people like you and people all over the world come on the show and have these conversations. It's phenomenal. So
it's cool to watch you do this. And I'm so grateful to be a part of it. So thank you, Mike.
Yeah, thank you. So I want to go back to something you said a little bit ago, was talking about building your dojo. It sounds like, that should be, I feel like there's a book title in there, Sam.
The idea came from a book I read that had a monumental impact on my career. It's called Turning Pro by Stephen Pressfield. Okay. And he also wrote another book called The War of Art. And this idea that every artist goes through this challenge and faces resistance, when you procrastinate. And it's something that's shared by all people who create art. And he defines artists by someone who creates anything, does work. And the book Turning Pro talked about the ideal difference between an amateur and a professional. And it gives a whole list of things that separate an amateur and a professional. And one of them was that they have a daily practice, and that their daily practice has a time and it has a space, and it is sacred. It's like a sacred thing that they do. And it embarrassed me. Like, I read this book and I felt embarrassed because I was at a place in my career, and this was maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago, where things were growing really fast. And I was leaning on what I had already learned, and I wasn't sharing new stories. I was telling the same ones over and over again. And that's all I ever did. And it worked, and it was growing. And I thought, I could do this for the rest of my life. And then I read this book and I was like, when was the last time I stood in the basement and just worked on new material? Like, I couldn't even think of a time. And, a little vulnerable to share it. But I remember when I was an athlete, it's like I practiced every day. If I only played soccer when I showed up on game day, I would have done a terrible job. It led to this idea of creating a space in my house to practice, which for me is the basement. And there's a mirror in the gym that I stand in front of, and I act like I'm holding a microphone. And it's changed the trajectory of my entire speaking business and ability to communicate.
It's a great ritual to be able to do something like that and put yourself. It's funny where that takes me. I was actually sharing with a group of salespeople maybe 2 weeks ago something quite similar. And especially in the business world, for anybody who's listening, you can probably appreciate this. I think there's a lot of analogies between sports and business.
Yeah.
And like, as you're sharing, and you can probably appreciate this as an athlete, like I was chatting with this group of mostly men, and I said, look, we have it backwards in business, because what'll happen is, like in sales, and most people know my background's automotive sales, is we'll show up on game day, right? We put in 40, 50 hours a week that I'm supposed to engage with a customer, follow through with my process, greet people, help them navigate this difficult buying process, and so forth. And the reason I say we have it backwards is when you look at pro athletes, pro soccer players, the NFL here in the US, they'll spend 40 or 50 hours a week in practice to show up for 3 or 4 hours on game day.
Yep.
Somehow we've decided, well, I'm going to spend 40 or 50 hours on game day, and I might dedicate an hour to learning my craft, right? And it's like, that's not enough time. You're absolutely right, that it takes, again, it goes back. I know I've said it several times. I know I'm repeating myself, but one of the most profound and impactful things is what you said early on, is like those small, consistent actions. And it's like, what are you doing to be deliberate about growing yourself in either what you're passionate about and what your career is, in what are you doing to grow yourself in general? And I think it's really easy to lose sight of that, Sam. So when you said building your dojo, you said because how I took it when you were talking building your dojo, initially, like I think it's one of those, it's like an analogy or a metaphor, right? But it sounds like you physically have a space, and you've got a mirror, you've got a workout area and so forth that's set up. So you're saying like physically, would that be a recommendation you would make to other people, is build a physical dojo?
Like have a space in your house that becomes the place you go to practice the skill, whatever the skill is. If it can be practiced in a home, I think it's really important to have a space and a time where you go and practice it. I think that for me was the biggest takeaway from the book and has greatly impacted my business. I wrote an entire new show because of that, called Be Someone's Taco, that was full of 60 minutes of new material, and used it during the book launch for my second book, Be Someone's Taco. And it was inspired in part by reading Turning Pro by Stephen Pressfield and dedicating this little space in the basement of our home to where I would practice and write. And I was telling a friend about this when I first started, writing more and practicing material more.
Sure.
And what came up in conversation was that the most important thing to measure at the start of any journey is not the goal or your progress. It's just attendance. Like they do it at school when we're in elementary school, did you show up today?
Did you show up?
Yeah. It's like, and there's a lesson there. And I think we lose it after we get out of elementary school and high school, but sometimes that's the hardest part. Like, did you put a check box and check it off beside the thing you said that mattered? And if you do that enough times, the goal over time, it'll figure itself out.
Well, and there's a difference between showing up to satisfy the time clock or showing up to satisfy the agreement versus actually showing up
and iterating. Yeah,
absolutely. So I got to ask you, and I'm going to remind everybody again, I'll put this on the screen, but if you want some of Sam's book info, if you want to if you want to purchase Empty Your Backpack or Be Someone's Taco, not if you want to empty your backpack, but hey, check out shop.samdemma.com. I think you should do a book now called Building Your Dojo. It's interesting. Stephen Pressfield, I have The War of Art. Yeah. I've not actually heard of Turning Pro. That's one of those that I'll definitely look into, and I'll have to take as a book recommendation, because I can see you light up as you're talking about. You're like, hey, this totally changed things. So it's awesome. Can you share? I would love for you to share, just for a moment, share because to me it was impactful. And if you're okay sharing just the short version of the Be Someone's Taco, how did you get there? What was the setup for that? Because if someone's just hearing this, they're like, that's a strange name for a book. How I would want to Be Someone's Taco.
It actually is a very strange name, because the elephant in the room is that taco is a slang term for young people for a different thing, and it's come up in schools before. And so like I get ahead of it myself, and I'm like, okay, let me explain where this came from so you guys have full context over this.
Yeah.
During the pandemic, one of my close friends, Andrew, I called him up to check in, see how he's doing, and the guy tells me he's still lying in bed. And it was the same time as your podcast on Eastern time. It was 2 p.m. in the afternoon.
Jeez.
And I was like, this guy doesn't work the night shift. Like, I don't know why he's still in bed at 2 o'clock. He's probably not doing so good. So I hung up the phone. He's my friend. I wanted to do something to make him feel better. So I ended up on his social media searching for something that he liked to try and surprise him with something. And I came across a post that said, my vote for dinner tonight is #tacos. Simplest elementary idea. Like, my friend likes tacos. I'm going to get him tacos. And I Ubered him taco dinner for 2 for him and his wife, Emily. I put a special note for the delivery person that said, hey, these tacos are from your friend. He hopes you feel better. I stare at my phone 20 minutes, watching the car drive down all the streets. Finally get the notification. Tacos have been delivered. I wasn't timing it, but I want to say it was like less than a minute or 2 minutes tops. My phone buzzes. It's a FaceTime call from Andrew, sitting on a bar stool in front of his kitchen countertop, box of tacos open behind him, bawling his eyes out. And I'm like, dude, it's 2 tacos in a box. Calm down. And he's like, no, man, you didn't know me and my wife had to shut down our business and lay off an employee. Maybe for you, it's just the tacos, but for us, this is something we're going to remember for the rest of our lives. And we start crying together. I hang up the phone. I go about the rest of my day feeling pretty good. I go to sleep, wake up the next morning, 500 text messages from Andrew of 500 individual taco emojis. The next year, every time we had a call, Mike, at some point, he'd be like, do you remember that one time? I'm like, dude, shut up.
Enough with the tacos.
Yes, we've talked about it. I know. I'm glad it helped you, you know? And that year on my birthday, he sends me an email of this bright yellow smiling taco. And he tells me that he like hired a graphic designer that was on his team to create this little logo. And, you know, above it said, be someone's taco. And he's like, you should talk about this. And, you know, it was funny because it was just as much a reminder for me as it now is to other people that yes, we have goals and dreams and we pursue all these things in life, but the most meaningful moments come when we just recognize a need in somebody else and do what we can to fill it. When we pause long enough to be aware of someone else who needs something and then choose to fill that void with a small act of service.
I love the story, and thank you for sharing it. Thank you for letting me put you on the spot to share it, because I was familiar, but I would like for me, I'd love for my audience to hear that, just because I think you're right. You never know how something so small could be so meaningful to somebody else if you're just paying attention. And there is no replacement. Gosh, who was it that said this? I can't think of it. It's an author, and now it's slips my mind. Years ago, 22 years ago, I'd read a book, and I remember the quote out of it. And he was talking about, you know, there's no replacement for genuine caring. You can't just baffle people with BS all the time. And so it's like that's where that hits me. So a couple things I'd like to ask you before we conclude today. Yeah. Because you've moved into, and we were talking right before the show, you said, hey, I have a few employees now. I got a team, or you didn't say employees. You said you had a few team members, which I love that, because I know while they probably work for and draw a paycheck from you and your companies, that was not your response. You said, hey, I've got these guys on these people on my team. And I love that attitude. What do you think has changed from you just Sam Demma going after it, right? Hey, I'm going to go after it. I'm going to go do this. I'm going to speak to some schools. I'm going to make an impact. I'm going to make a difference. What changed from that to leading some people on your team? Could you give maybe 2 or 3 tidbits that you've learned going through that transition?
The vision grew bigger, and there was no way I was going to be able to bring it to life alone. And there's no reason you should have to bring it to life alone. I spent years working on this thing by myself, doing every job, producing the podcast, releasing the episodes, doing all the sales calls, writing all the material, doing the newsletter, scheduling all the meetings, booking all the travel, doing all the invoicing, doing my own accounting, doing my own bookkeeping. And it's like, okay, 5 years, enough, Sam. Why are you not asking for help? It's okay to ask for help. And I was very fortunate that I had a mentor named Chris who role modeled what it looked like to work collaboratively with other people. And Chris changed my life. And this is going to sound really weird, but you remind me a lot of Chris. And
that's a good thing. Before that, you said Chris changed my life. So thank you.
Yeah, it is a good thing.
Thank you for the compliment.
And he role modeled what it looked like to work with others. And I remember vividly getting overwhelmed. And he said, Sam, I want you to make a list of all the things that give you anxiety in your business, the things you do that you don't enjoy. And let's just start with 2 or 3 of them. Let's outsource a couple of them. And one of the first was producing my podcast. So I made this 2-page document that was all about podcast production and all the steps I take to make an episode, from recording it to publishing it. And I hired a high school intern named Abdul, and he produced our podcast for the next 2-3 years and made the blog posts that were associated with each episode. And it was the first time I thought, wow, someone else is excited because they're getting paid to do work they love. And I'm also excited because I no longer have to do work that was not something I enjoyed. And it was like, whoa, win-win. And then I got introduced to the work of Dan Martell through a book called Buy Back Your Time. And he shattered a belief I had that was a very narcissistic belief that no one's going to do the work as good as I can. Like I care more than anybody else will. And you know what? You might be true. But Dan always said 80% done by another person is 100% freaking awesome. And I was like, okay, this is such a mindset unlock. If someone can do it 80% to what we expect, and I'm not involved at all, that is a great success. And that led to my next team member, which was an executive assistant who cleared so much off my plate and found joy. This is the thing. Like, this is their zone of genius. They loved organizing things. And so we collaborated really well. And as that created more capacity, the vision grew bigger and the opportunities started to grow. And we found needs that I could not fill myself. I can't hold a camera and be on stage at the same time. I'm not good at editing videos. Like, these are skills that would not make the most sense for me to develop that other people love. So that led to Matt, our head of media, and Richard, who does all of our written newsletter content, and Scott, who helps with our e-commerce store and does everything related to the selling of books and merchandise. And together as a team, we created the vision. I hired an external consultant to come in and do a 6-week workshop where we as a team together decided what is our mission, vision, and values. And the thing I'm most proud of is that they speak of this baby like it's their own. It's not me, it's we. And every 3 weeks, we read a book as a team. We have an active book club, and we choose a different book every 3 weeks. One that really impacted our culture is No Rules Rules, which is a book about the culture of Netflix. And there's a dozen things from that book that we implement and live by in the company today. Anyway, I feel like I'm rambling now. That's how the team evolved.
Dude, this is what people need to hear. I want to be a part of your book club. Here's the things, because I listen, and this is the best thing in the world, because when I'm listening to people on this show, when you start talking about stuff like this, Sam, like your team members and the vision and the growth, you light up. You start, breathing more quickly. You start speaking more quickly. The volume, that's something that is so awesome in leadership. When you're talking about your team, the light that you project, that people need more of that. Just plain and simple. Like, people need to see that. And the people that listen to the show, that watch the show, you need to be excited about stuff like that. Take note of what excites you and what ignites you when you start talking about your team and those things. And so here's where I try and distill stuff down. I always challenge people, like, you correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm not going to say the same things you said, but here's what I pulled from it. One is, your job is sort of the face, right? Obviously, it's samdemma.com, right?
Yeah.
Your job is to cast the vision, nurture the vision, and make sure the vision is growing bigger.
Yep.
The other thing that I think is super powerful that I heard you say, like, the things that either you're not good at, that you're performing at a C+ level, or that cause anxiety for you, outsource them. And I've heard that many, many times, and I'm as guilty as can be of it, because it's like, okay, can you find people that can produce that at 80%? And you said if they can produce at 80%, it's 100% awesome. The one thing that I would tweak a little bit, and people need to hear this, is if you find somebody that can perform that at, I would say 75, 80% or better, it frees up 100% of your time to cast more vision and grow bigger.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. One of the reasons I think many leaders stay smart, and then we justify, right? We justify it with, well, it's because I'm doing all the things, but I love being able to interact one-on-one with the people and so on and so forth. Right. But can you imagine how much bigger and how much more impact you could make and how much more vision you could cast if you're willing? The amazing thing is the tighter you hold on sometimes, the smaller you stay. And you think, well, if I let go, people aren't going to love it. And you summed it up beautifully. You said, hey, I've got all these people that see the mission, the vision, the values, they get ignited about it. And because they get excited and ignited about it, you can see that passion come through in you. And part of it's a synergistic relationship, right? Because part of the reason they're probably excited about that you have an executive assistant being excited about organizational things, which I personally could never understand, is because of how excited you are about the rest of the business and about the fact that I have to imagine the way you operate as as a leader in your business is you're showing genuine gratitude to that executive assistant all the time. Like, dude, that's so awesome. High five, you crushed it. Right. And so, people get to experience those wins. So I think people need to hear that. It's your job as the leader to grow the vision and then get other people that can get behind the vision and move forward. I love all the things that you shared, man. Every single one. It's so good.
I call the team the awkward Avengers, because if you stand us side by side, we're this eclectic bunch of young people, and it's you lead with heart, and the right group of human beings can move mountains. And
absolutely,
we have an internal Slack channel called Moments of Significance. And there are these moments we're hunting for as a team always, where something we've done or created creates some form of significance in the life of another human being. And we screenshot them and put them in this Slack channel. And it's an opportunity to
awesome.
allow the whole company, which is 4 people right now, to see firsthand the impact of their work. Because most of the time it's not just the speeches, it's emails and it's videos and it's the book they bought that Scott helped sell through the store. And so they see the impact we're creating. And it also is a way to appreciate the individual attached to the role or the job. And
love it.
We start every meeting going over mission, vision, values. And I only share one of the 3, and we alternate, and someone else does values next week and someone else shares the mission the week after. And it's just, it feels like the start of something really important with people that I enjoy working with. And that's how it feels every meeting.
I love that. And the other thing that I want people to hear, because I listen sort of between the comments and between the lines. The other thing that I want people to hear is there is always so much more impact, value, growth, connection, relationship than is just on the surface on the outside. And I think it's easy for people to look and go, oh man, Sam Demma, I love that guy. I watch him on YouTube or Instagram and I see all the stuff. And it's like, yes, you get the opportunity to do that. I love the fact of how genuine you are, Sam. And when you're talking about this stuff, you're like, dude, there's so much other stuff behind the scenes. Yeah. And I would a couple or 3 things. The fact that you're like, hey, it's only 4 people. I would just say, from my perspective, look at all of that you've been able to accomplish with those 4 amazing people.
Yeah.
Like, that's pretty powerful. And you said that, like, hey, get people behind it and so forth. The other 2 things is then I need to know how I can be a part of Moments of Significance and your book club. Hey, so a couple things. If I'm going to just remind some people here, and we're kind of at the tail end. So I'll ask you for some final thoughts here in just a second. For everybody here, as a reminder, and I encourage you, man, go connect with Sam. He is absolutely phenomenal. Check out his website is samdemma.com, SAMDEMMA.com. Certainly you can check out his books and more to come at shop.samdemma.com. And then, as he was mentioning to me and us earlier, Instagram. Check out his Instagram. He said I connected and saw a lot of his content on YouTube. I mean, you're exploding over there as well on YouTube. But Instagram, you said you post a lot of the stuff there. So definitely check out Instagram. It's Sam Demma with that underscore. So Sam_Demma if you're going to connect on Instagram for anybody. And just absolutely phenomenal human being. Phenomenal messages. I would say phenomenal message, but you have so many different great messages to share, Sam. So any final thoughts that you'd like to share today?
Subscribe to the Leadership Toolkit. Mic drop.
I can appreciate that. All right. Well, so you guys do what he said. Go subscribe to the Leadership Toolkit. Sam, if you would hang out for just a minute, I'm going to go ahead and take us out. Okay.
Let's do it.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to bring us to a close for another episode of the Leadership Toolkit. As I share with you each week, most importantly, well, a couple things. One is, yes, please do subscribe. Throw some thumbs up on there. Throw some likes. That's one of the ways that any podcast, any creator continues to grow, is the more that this gets engaged with, the more opportunities it creates. 2 other asks today. One, and most importantly, if you know somebody that needs to hear this message, if you know somebody that maybe needs to connect with Sam or needs to hear what it is that we're talking about casting vision and being genuine in your business and taking small, consistent actions and just going after the things that you're passionate about, send this show to them. Copy the URL, send it to them in email or messenger or whatever your preferred, text it over, because that's the most impactful thing. Like if you're going to grow people that are in your circle, then be deliberate about growing people in your circle. It's not just about you. Grow the people that are around you. And then last, certainly, as always, if you know somebody that would be an excellent guest on the Leadership Toolkit, or if you know of a company that might need some leadership speaking or consulting, please, by all means, reach out. It's mike@theleadershiptoolkit.com. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in and joining me today. I appreciate you. I look forward to seeing you next Wednesday. Until then, stay great. We'll talk soon, everyone.